Good afternoon. My name is Taffy Gatawa and I'm the Chief Information Officer at EveryLife Technologies. I'm delighted to have been asked to come and share some insights and ideas about how a DPO can work with suppliers to build a robust data protection program. In this session, I'm going to look at what I believe are the three building blocks for enabling that relationship between the DPO and the suppliers. We know that the DPO is the point of contact for data subjects, both within the organization and external to the organization who may want to have queries. And so the DPO is really crucial in facilitating communication between data subjects and the organization, but also, as we've spoken about before, that advisory role. And that requires a good understanding of systems in place, how they are governed, and I think that's where the relationship with the supplier really comes in. The three building blocks that I think are important for building that supplier DPO relationship are as follows. Accountability. That's really important as part of framing that relationship between the DPO and the suppliers. The second building block is about enabling engagement that is collaborative, and that's the two parties coming together to work through what are the requirements in terms of enabling compliance and being able to have that on an ongoing basis to ensure compliance across the organization. Finally, I think the relationship between the DPO and IT suppliers needs to have a framework around managing that relationship. And I will talk in turn across these as we go through the session. And I think an easy way of thinking about this framework is think of it as the ACT. So A is for accountability, C is collaborative engagement, and T is third-party supplier management. And so this is kind of like the ACT in my mind that helps to build that relationship between the DPO and IT suppliers. So looking at accountability, so we know that the GDPR sets out clear accountability over data processing activities, and that's going to be really important as you start to build those relationships with IT suppliers. There's a clear line in terms of what are the expectations from your IT suppliers as your processors, and the expectations in terms of your responsibility as the data controller, in this case obviously the DPO who's working with the data controller to ensure that those requirements are met. And so being really clear as you develop that relationship in terms of where accountability lies for respective activities in terms of data processing activities will be really important. We know that the regulations set out an obligation to implement appropriate and effective measures. And I see the developing of a relationship with IT suppliers as part of that obligation and meeting those appropriate effective measures. And so by doing so, you can stay close to the data processing activities that are being undertaken on behalf of you as the controller, and really understand the areas and the issues that may arise through regular contact with your IT supplier. The accountability framework also helps in demonstrating compliance of processing activities. And so as you build that framework, being really clear about responsibilities and where those lies for various activities, you can build in what the demonstrable compliance looks like across those activities. Moving on to the collaboration between the DPO and the engagement. Now, this is not intended to be an exhaustive list by any means, but you may have noticed that this is a list primarily just of things to do and not many don'ts within this list. And I've selected a few that, to my mind, I think are important as part of that relationship, but there will be many more that are not reflected within this slide. So Being able to have a relationship with your IT suppliers means that they can support any due diligence activities that you need to do by providing the appropriate evidence to show that the requirements that you need to satisfy, they are able to satisfy. It's important, I believe, to establish contact with the relevant personnel who are responsible for data protection within any IT supplier organization that you're using. And often I think this is an area that is overlooked. So people don't take time at the beginning of engaging a supplier to establish that contact. And it's when things have gone wrong or they need key information that is time critical that they're trying to find out who are the right people. So taking time from the outset to understand who are those people that as a DPO you'll want to engage with going forward will be really important to start setting those foundations for that relationship. And also within that, you'll be able to build in a process for reviewing compliance with the regulation. And together you can work through what is an appropriate framework for doing that. It could be that you have quarterly reviews around issues, or actually you tie that in with your own internal audit program, and then you are provided with key information at particular points in time that you need it. Do remember that you have joint responsibility for data protection. The regulations are really clear around what is the responsibility of the data processors and indeed what is the responsibility of the controller. So it really isn't a case that once you have your IT supplier, they will take care of all of the security requirements and you don't have to do anything. Remember that it's a joint responsibility. You are accountable for any processing that is done on your behalf, so it's really important that you have that relationship and you're able to stay close to that processing activity that is being done on your behalf. The other thing to consider is that as you move through and start to innovate within your organizations, do involve your supplier when considering any process changes. Often the supplier might be able to suggest ways that mean you can deliver the innovation that you want to do, but also considering all of the necessary potential data protection implications. So involving your supplier in those process changes is good practice and something that I would recommend for DPOs working in this space. Maintaining open lines of communication is really important. You want to be able to have that open line of communication so that as and when you need to, you can reach out to your supplier, get information that you need, and similarly, they can feel able to raise any issues, any concerns outside of regular review periods. The only thing that I would say is a big don't as far as collaborative engagement is failing to make that contact and having that engagement with your supplier. Often if there hasn't been any engagement and something has gone wrong, it can be very difficult to get information. It can take a long time because you're trying to source the right person within the organization. So it's worth investing the time up front to start to develop the relationship with the supplier from the outset. And so any relationship with your IT supplier needs to be governed by good third-party supplier management. And so as suggested within the guidelines, it's important that you have a contract for processing that data. So make sure that any subcontractors that you have, you've got the appropriate contract that sets out the responsibilities, the accountability, as we've talked about, and make that really clear within a governing contract that you can call upon. Your supplier will be able to support you with implementing technical measures, and this is a key requirement. So again, as part of that framework and that supplier management, being really clear what are those things from a technical perspective that your supplier has implemented, can implement, or through regular review, jointly identify that needs implementing and working through the delivery of those technical measures in a way that you'll be able to demonstrate if called upon. Finally, the supplier can also help with assistance when it comes to investigations, and also they can help you to meet those strict reporting timelines by, again, having a clear structure in place that tells the supplier how promptly you wish to be notified. We know that those rules are set out, but making sure that that's really clear in any framework or contract that you have with your supplier will be really important. And so to recap, this session has been primarily looking at that relationship with the IT supplier and the DPO. A framework for accountability sets out the responsibilities, and that's really important to think about from the outset. Good collaborative engagement with the supplier will help ensure a successful data protection program. And remember that suppliers play a crucial role in implementing effective technical measures. So make contact, establish a relationship, and work together with your suppliers to ensure that you have those effective technical measures in place for the data processing activities they undertake on your behalf. Establish contact with your suppliers, key data personnel from the outset, and not wait for when you need something urgently to try to build those relationships. So I hope that's been useful really in just bringing the perspective of the supplier and how that fits in from a DPO perspective as you consider those responsibilities and that role that the DPO plays. Thank you very much.